Welcome to AI in Action, Exploring Tomorrow's Tech Today, the podcast where we delve into the groundbreaking world of artificial intelligence. I'm Maurie, and with me is my husband, Jim. With our combined expertise in technology and education, we're here to guide you through the AI revolution. Whether it's the latest news headlines or transformative AI applications in classrooms, healthcare, and beyond, we're here to make sense of it all. Together, let's uncover how AI is reshaping our world from everyday encounters to the future of work. So let's dive in and explore tomorrow's tech today. Welcome to the first episode of AI in Action, Exploring Tomorrow's Tech Today. We're so excited to have you join us on this journey. Before we dive into the fascinating world of AI, we think it's important for you to know a bit more about us. I'm Maurie, and my journey in education spans over 17 years in various roles, from being a primary and secondary school teacher, a tech coach, school counselor, to an assistant principal and a network administrator. I have worn many hats in education. Outside of education, I've also owned a technology company and a restaurant, and I am the founder, along with my husband Jim, of a company called AI Education Professionals, or AIEdPro.com. We go out into a lot of different locations and train people on the use of AI in education, how it is transforming what we know. We cover the scary parts and we cover all the benefits, and we are very, very passionate about this. So much so that we have published our first book called Empowering K-12 Education with Artificial Intelligence, a guide for teachers and administrators. Now, Jim, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background?
Hello, my name is Jim. I was a hardware and software design engineer before I came into education. I've been in education for about 17 years. I have an associate's degree in electronics technology, and I have a Bachelor of Science in Computer Science and Engineering from Texas A&M University. I spent much of my career as a hardware and a software design engineer, as I said earlier, but I've also traveled the world teaching people about technology. I worked for a biometrics company for a while, so I spent a lot of time educating people about biometrics. So I've done, as Maurie said, we've worn a lot of different hats. We've started several companies, but when I came to the school district, I kind of had this idea that I was going to stay 2 or 3 years and I was going to move on to something else. You kind of always want to stay cutting edge in technology. But as you can tell, since I've been there for 17 years, I was not able to leave because the job never feels finished. There's always more things you want to teach and more things you want to show the kids. I discovered I do have a passion for doing that. Along with Maurie, I've enjoyed working with her on all these different jobs. And it's been fun.
You've also testified before a House subcommittee before.
I have, actually, on technology. One of my passions is equal access to technology for students in rural areas. And we come from a small town, and I really felt like that there was more that could be done. So I was asked to testify before House subcommittee on rural broadband.
Yes. The other thing that we currently are working on is our second book. We are talking about supercharging makerspace using artificial intelligence. So be looking for that. It's in the editing process right now. So we are so glad that you are here for our very first episode. Again, our podcast is called AI in Action, Exploring Tomorrow's Tech Today. So on this first episode, we are going to talk about 2 interesting articles that we were actually discussing over breakfast the other day. So the first one is from Forbes magazine.
Yeah, I read a lot about AI stuff, and some of the articles catch my attention to the point where I actually keep a Google Doc called Headlines, and I put those in there because I'm just determined everybody wants to read them. And this particular one was about what they called utopists versus doomers. And they basically said we need more in the middle, people that are louder pragmatists. So what is it that you would define as a pragmatist versus a doomer versus a utopist?
I really don't know. So to me, a doomer is someone who is just, everything's going to be horrible. It's going to take over the world. We're going to lose all of our jobs. The doomsayers.
That is correct. The doomsayers are pretty much the doomers. I mean, it's self-explanatory. The utopias are it's going to save everything. The world is going to be, everything about the world is going to be better. I think we all know that the world never quite works that way. It generally doesn't go as bad as we thought, and it generally doesn't go as good as we thought. It's somewhere in the middle. To me, that's what a pragmatist is.
Right. But the middle never gets the headlines.
The middle doesn't. And I consider both of us to be pragmatists because I really want to see AI adopted, especially in education, but as a way as a tool to help us do things that are much harder to do without it. And I've already found many, many uses for it. When I started using it, I actually was trying to do a robotics project, and there was something I didn't know how to do, and it helped me do that. So I think the article is an interesting read. I tend to agree with most of the points. I never agree with every point because that's part of being an engineer. You got to disagree with something. Mm-hmm. But I do think that the overall subject about who needs to be louder, I do agree with.
Okay, so how can a pragmatist be louder? What should we be doing other than this podcast?
Well, I mean, mainly what we should be doing, I'm told over and over again, I should be writing articles, I should be doing podcasts, I should be doing things because I do tend to be more in the middle. I mean, I do think there are guardrails that need to be up. There are rules. They talk about that in the article about the ethical rules and making sure people understand it. The first time I ever touched machine learning, I actually was trying to build a simple neural network. I had no earthly idea how it worked. It worked, but I didn't know what it did. And I think the closing off of some of the AI that's already happening and the silos that are forming are not necessarily a good thing. So I do think that there needs to be more discussions about what are the good points, what are the bad points, because there's a lot of opportunity in both directions.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So the second article that I found really interesting that you shared with me, I think it was like at 4:00 in the morning when I got the text message, was on The Verge. And it's about hope, fear, and AI. So let's talk about that article for just a little bit.
Well, they polled 2,000 people, and I've seen this reposted over and over and over again. They polled lots of people. And there's lots of stuff in the article, but the reality is that I think the important stuff is who's heard of it, who's using it, how do people feel about it. That's kind of the sense that I got out of the article. And you'll find, to no big surprise, that the people that are using it and heard about it tend to be younger.
Yes.
And
always the first to adopt. I was at work the other day and I made an offhanded comment to a student that I had taught previously, who's now a senior in high school, about ChatGPT, which is like the AI that people are using all the time. And his comment back to me was, well, Miss Beasley, I've been using it to write my papers for over a year now. So he adopted it really early, and I know the teachers hadn't even heard about it yet.
Most of our teachers, we've done trainings, not only at our school district, but others. Many times the teachers have heard the word. We hear that all the time. I've heard about ChatGPT. I've heard about AI. I don't know what it is exactly, but I've heard about it. Well, believe me, from what we've seen, the kids, they've not only heard about it, they're using it. They've got it on their phone, they've got it on their laptops, and they're using it. In many cases, it's entertainment. They talk about this in the article. What do people usually use it for? I mean, yeah, they're using it for the things like you don't really want them to, like writing papers, but they're also using it for what they love. They're generating art. They're generating cool, seeing what the thing will say if they say this, having interactive chats with it. So when you look at the different percentages of what they're using it for, they want to use AI to do what they love doing already, which is creative endeavors. How can it help them be creative?
Well, even on this podcast, whenever we started talking about having a podcast, what's the first thing that I did? I went to ChatGPT and I said, hey, I want to start a podcast. Give me an outline of what I should do. I want that 1, 2, 3 step of, what platforms do I need to put it on? What's the most popular this? What's the most popular that? So it really is a great place for information. And what I like about it is that it doesn't feel like I'm just looking at a search engine that I'm having to go through and digest all the information myself. It's digested the information for me and it's given me an answer in a human-like tone.
In some cases, it's made me a little braver than I should be because I like to do things in technology that are really out of my wheelhouse. I like to try things I haven't tried, but many times you're afraid to because you don't know what you're going to do or how you're going to mess things up. But the one thing that I started doing early on was the artwork. The article talks about that. How do people feel about artwork? And I think we're already seeing some movement toward doing a better job of compensating the creative artists that were used to their material was used to train these things with. But I'm not an artist. I can barely draw stick figures. It's embarrassing. And so the idea that I could actually do something that looks really cool is very exciting. I haven't done a lot. I keep asking, Maury to generate stuff for me, but I am looking forward to trying to do some stuff with art. I'm looking forward to this multimodal idea where you can use it to do all these different things just with text prompts.
Now, something else that we found that it was really good for was Python coding. So, I mean,
Yeah,
it's
the article doesn't talk a lot about the coding aspect of it, but I'd say the coders they're both terrified of it, and yet I got to have this at the same time. The last survey said 92% of the coders they surveyed had been using this already. I used it myself, as I mentioned. I was trying to do a robotics project. I'm actually trying. My son and I were trying to build a robot that followed us around, and everything that was out there was about facial recognition, and we couldn't get it to recognize us from behind. I even had Mari make a T-shirt with my face on the back so I could try to have the thing follow me. It just wouldn't work. And so I started talking about how do you train models to do that, and I got into AI for that reason. I think everybody gets in it for a different reason, which is the point of this article. It's about who's heard of it, who hasn't heard of it, and what are people using it for.
so again, it's found on a thing called The Verge, and it is actually titled Hope, Fear, and AI. It's a really good read if you want to go find it on the internet. Taking this back real quick to education, tell me what you think AI is going to do for education when it comes to like students who don't use it versus students who do. I know that I heard the other day a kid was interviewed, and like a kid who normally would never ever consider using anything other than their own talents to do something, and they were saying that they were going to be at a disadvantage if they did not use artificial intelligence. Do you think that's true?
I do, unfortunately. It's a strange thing when you think about the adoption, how things are adopted. It's not a smooth, linear process. And so you start going, what is this going to do to education? Well, we need to get this in education. Well, education tends to be slow to adopt, but that's not necessarily a bad thing because things change so rapidly. You get whiplash trying to keep up. But when I did computer science originally many years ago, and then my daughter is also a computer scientist, and my youngest son is also majoring in computer science, surprisingly enough. And when you look at all this, how they were taught years ago versus now, it hasn't changed that much. And I think this is going to be the first thing that changes how we interact with knowledge so much that education is going to have to change. And it's going to have to change sooner. That's what, when you look at this article, what's a little bit disconcerting is the fact that the people, a lot of the teachers that are maybe they're boomers, maybe they're Gen X, maybe, a lot of the teachers, the older generation teachers are retiring, but even the ones that aren't the older generation that haven't retired still haven't heard of it. So I think that weird nonlinear adoption thing may not be a good thing here. We have a lot of changes that are going to happen, and they're going to happen faster than we want them to, is my opinion. I think that this is going to be a big deal. It changes how we interact with knowledge.
Yes, I agree. It is definitely going to be a big deal.
Yeah, we're going to try very hard not to be self-promoting, but we do believe in what we're doing. So it's hard for us not to say, kind of promote how we're doing it. We do have our own passions. Mine is certainly around our next book that's coming out. I love makerspace ideas, and I love what we can do with that. So whether we want to or not, we're definitely going to put that into one of our podcasts. And I read lots of information, so we're hoping maybe we can help you kind of sift through all this stuff and figure out what's important and how it might affect you.
And that brings us to the end of AI in Action, Exploring Tomorrow's Tech Today. We're Maurie and Jim, your guides on this exciting journey through the world of artificial intelligence. We hope today's conversation has left you with fresh insights and a deeper understanding of how AI is shaping our future. If you enjoyed our discussion and want to stay up to date with the latest in AI, make sure to subscribe and share the podcast with your friends and colleagues. Remember, the future is not something that just happens to us. It's something we can actively shape and influence with knowledge and action. So let's continue exploring, innovating, and taking action. Thank you for joining us today. We look forward to sharing more exciting AI developments with you next time on AI in Action, Exploring Tomorrow's Tech Today.